Hello. Welcome to episode 403 of the Sunday New York Times Read Along, hosted by me, Neil Parekh, and Sreenivasan. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and the Digimentors website. Please like, comment, share, retweet, do all of the things you do to make sure people find this show. Thank you in particular to everyone watching on replay. We appreciate you taking the time to come back to a show like this. We know 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time is not when everyone is free. Some people might be sleeping in, people might be working or going to church, etc. You might also be on the West Coast, although several people go watch the show early. We know that sometimes at 8:30 a.m. just doesn't work. So thank you so much for coming back to watch. We have another interesting show planned today. We're going to talk about the Indian cockroach protest that has been going on over the last week or so, and the incredible impact it has had. And if you don't know what the reference is, stay tuned. You'll understand fairly quickly. We'll also be talking a bit about the Odyssey, the movie by Christopher Nolan. We're wondering if you've seen it and what your take is on it. We haven't seen it yet. We're actually waiting for my daughter to come back from camp. She's a big fan of the Odyssey and the Iliad, and we're looking to find a good time and the proper theater to watch it in. The other item we're really going to focus on, in addition to this week's news, is the World Cup. Now, the finals, of course, took place last week after our Sunday show. I had a chance to watch it with my nephew in New Jersey. He was visiting from Seattle, and Argentina was schooled. That's the only way to put it. They were schooled. But I think what's interesting is to look at the commentary about all the criticism that the Argentine team got in terms of being the villains of 2026 and how the country is reacting. So we'll take a look at that as well and hear your thoughts. First, I want to make sure that we do some quick announcements, and then we'll bring on Sreenivasan. The show is produced by Digimentors, the social and digital consulting firm that Sree started with his friend Andrew Lee. We do digital marketing, events and digital programs, strategic communications, trainings and workshops, as well as helping with staffing and recruiting. We also do a lot of work around AI. We also want to thank our sponsors, Muckrack and Graphic History Company. Thank you so much for your support of our show. And now, our co-host, Sreenivasan. Sree, good to see you.
Good to see you, Neil, and hello to everybody. We are so glad you're able to join us. When you're here live or later, it means so much to us. We appreciate your feedback, your comments. Neil has a weekly note he sends out about what's coming up. I hope you signed up for that, everybody. Neil@digimentors.group. That's the best way to keep up with what's happening on the show. Neil, 402 episodes. It's just incredible. 275 guests. 10 plus years we're celebrating, and we just recently did some math. We had 95 guests from the New York Times in these 400 episodes.
Absolutely, and a lot of the credit of that goes to our friend Carla Baranakis, former national copy editor for the New York Times, who was our booker for a long time on the show. And Sree, I keep saying it, we got to interview some of the heroes that I had growing up. Yes, I had baseball heroes, but I also had New York Times heroes. That's the kind of kid I was. In particular, Clyde Haberman and Claire Smith, Bill Rhoden, some of the sports columnists,
Hedrick Smith.
People whose bylines I read, and then I got to sit on screen with them and interview them. Another big one for me, Jack Curry, who is now at the Yes Network, covering the Yankees. Great times.
Amazing, folks. Thank you again. If you are watching live, just tag your friends right now, someone who cares about the news, cares about fighting misinformation and disinformation, and they can join us live or later. It's the best way to help us spread the word and to help fight all the terrible stuff that's happening. Let's say hello to some folks. Patricia says grace and greetings from New York. And Gunter is watching from Austria. We love having our friends around the world. Here's Silver Spring, Maryland, Pradnya Aldipur, who's been a guest on the show. Doug Levy is watching from the Bay Area at 5:30 a.m. And Diane is watching from Margate, New Jersey, where it's a beautiful day. And my dear friend Abu Tahir is watching. He is the most important Bangladeshi American journalist and one of the top journalists in America for what he has done to bring his community together, connect them with the world, connect them with America. And he's been featured in the New York Times back in the day about his coverage and how he's covering the American political scene. I think it was one of the Obama conventions that he got to go to. Now he not only has a newspaper, he also has a big TV platform as well. And hello to Mary C. Curtis, muggy Charlotte, North Carolina. What a spectacle the White House Correspondents' Dinner has become. You are so right. It was in the last 2 days. I didn't even realize they were rerunning it. I knew I'd heard they were rerunning it, but I didn't know they were doing it. I think they did it either Friday or last night, and people were very critical of how that all went down, and maybe we'll play some low lights of it. Abu says, thanks from Time Television. Naomi is watching. Greetings and salutations from Rhode Island. How is traffic from Long Island to New Jersey to your soccer jaunt? And after he answers that, I'll tell you where I am in Long Island.
So last week, if you were watching, I did the show from Long Island. A big shout out to my cousin, Kishore Parekh, celebrating his 80th birthday. I couldn't make the big celebration yesterday because I was picking up Emily from camp. But last week, I went out there, and what I ended up doing, Naomi, is waiting until closer to game time. So I didn't leave until about 2 o'clock. So that anyone who was trying to get to the game was probably already at the game. And it just took the standard hour 15 or so, and then had a great time watching the game with my nephew. Where are you in Long Island, Sree?
Yeah, I'm in a beautiful place called Hampton Bays. It's part of the famous Hamptons. And we're here at the home of our dear friend Sandeep and Shobana. I just want to show you what a gorgeous day it is out here. The weather's perfect, and it's bright and sunny. You'll hear some noise perhaps because of the cars going by, the birds, but that's what you get when you sit outside. So I'm this week's Long Island correspondent. Last week it was Neil. I do want to show you right away something unusual. Occasionally we look at the ads, we look at the stories, and we look at the ads, but look at this. This is an ad for something called Okta, which I don't know what it is. And it says, trace every agent's action. And it says something about the vocabulary in the world right now, that you can run an ad like this in the New York Times, which is not the most technical of audiences, and expect people will know what it means. This is an ad that probably costs $75,000 to $100,000. And this is reaching just the people who understand that the word agent here has nothing to do with your ticket, your travel agent, or your other kind of a publicity agent, though in a way it does. But this is talking about your AI agents, things that go out and work on your behalf. So to be able to put that in a headline like that of an ad, Neil, I think is kind of a moment we can look back on many years from now and say that's when this is happening. There are some terms like vibe coding, which everybody who's in the AI space presumes everybody knows, but it's not the case. We were with another friend last week at the soccer a viewing party, and they hadn't heard the word vibe coding, and there was a little bit of a discussion: should he have heard of vibe coding or not? So where do you come down on these kind of terms, vibe coding, agents, etc.?
Well, I certainly am familiar with agents. I've heard vibe coding. I can't say that I completely understand it.
But you had heard of it. This person had never heard the word vibe coding. Yeah. That was what was unusual. Yeah.
what I think is interesting though is I think of the ads, Sree, and that could be its own analysis in terms of, to me, it's when technology enters. In this case, I'm going to call it the ad vernacular, whether it's
Mm.
on TV, whether it's in print. I mean, you've seen it over time, like when the first email addresses first started popping up in ads, when the
Sure.
first websites started popping up, and then social media. And obviously now we're getting ads for AI. But I think of this is the first time I've seen a reference to agents in a print ad. And I'm thinking about all the TV ads to come that will
Yes.
be, in 5 years, it'll be normal. I mean, just kind of like it's normal to put a website on the screen, much less
Sure.
a social media, like, follow us at Digimentors with all the
Sure.
icons. It'll be a, use our agent or whatever
Yeah.
type thing.
You're so right, and I remember being in India where they're far ahead of us in terms of use of QR codes and things like that. They were running QR codes on Indian television ads long before Americans were even using it widely. Of course, now you wouldn't be surprised to see a QR code. So you're absolutely right.
Well,
but I got to say, some
on
fashion
QR
ads.
codes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Some fashion ads, I'm like that too. Like I look at something and I need somebody to translate it for me and explain what it is that we're looking at. So folks, if
well,
you're the first time you're joining us, we look at the paper, we discuss it, but we also put your comments on the screen because that's what makes it possible for us to do a show that's different from almost anything else you see on a Sunday morning or any other time. And Debbie's watching from DC. Debbie, I got your note and you're a great connection to one of your dear friends who's also out in Long Island. So I'm going to connect with her. Miriam's watching from Hell's Kitchen, had trouble getting on Facebook, but now it's on your TV. That's right. You can watch it on your big TV. We're streaming kind of on two ways in YouTube, Neil. It's a kind of complicated thing. Just explain what that means.
Sure. So on YouTube, what we're doing now is we're streaming both in a regular horizontal format, which is, kind of more standard for TV, etc. But you can also find us in a vertical format on YouTube, which is great for YouTube Shorts. So oftentimes we'll get new people watching on YouTube Shorts and commenting, and we had a very spirited discussion yesterday. Sree, want to check the autofocus on your camera? I don't know if there's a setting that you can work on.
Did it just go down to my stomach?
Luckily, it was a little bit off center. This is a family-friendly show, so I had to cover it up real quickly.
I think it's the MacBook center stage setting that adjusts where, now if I put center stage, it tries to keep me in focus, and then when it couldn't find my face, it just started looking for my face. So I'm going to turn that off.
It find that setting. What it did is it looked for a picture in the paper that was kind of near your lap, and that's what it was focusing on. But as Sree is finding that setting, I was going to say that another thing that I was going to point out when we talked about the QR codes is this article that I saw in the Times just yesterday. And this is, to me, it's really interesting. And Sree, I'll bring you back. Hopefully you've resolved those.
No more crotch shots. Yeah.
Hey, that's a little far for Sunday morning. But QR codes making their way down wedding aisles. So this is something I know you and I have talked about is, with the advancing of technology on our phones and how iPhones and Androids use QR codes and how easy it is or not easy it is to scan a QR code. I still think that Android has an upper hand because you can see an image on the phone and scan the QR code right there. You don't have to have a second phone to scan it. Android, just hit the home button and it'll find it. But it must be getting more popular and more easy to use if they're using it as at weddings for everything from finding your seating to uploading photos. Here's an example of a QR code on a place card. So I would say QR codes
money
certainly
doing this because you're not printing as many things. So
yeah,
I guess that's pretty cool.
QR codes have arrived if they're at weddings now.
Yeah, exactly. Here is Naomi saying smart strategy, Neil, about your travel, and she is making it clear it's on Long Island, not in Long Island. So if I said in, I knew that, but if I said in, I am so sorry for saying that. And let's see, Ken is watching from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Ken, thank you for all your support of our show. Look at this cover of the New York Times Magazine. Stunning. Can you tell what that is, Neil? That is, in fact, a car.
Um,
And this is
I
called.
know what it is because I looked it up beforehand, but
Oh, okay.
you can't. It's hard to tell. I mean, if you look closely, there is a Ford icon. You know, the logo, and you can kind of see it's a car that's been compacted. You
Yes.
know, with the
And it
wheel
says
and
the American EV has been crushed. Who is to blame? I rented, Neil, for the first time a full electric car, a Kia, and a V6, I think it's called. It was excellent. I've found it very easy to drive. It uh, it gets a lot of mileage, and they have in this home a place to plug it in. So we just not to have to worry about gas. You have to keep your eye on the range, but if you're not doing long distance driving, it's not even an issue. And just to go around, zip around town, I think it's a wonderful thing. So it's the first time I'm actually driving an EV. And so that's a Kia, which is from South Korea, obviously. So this is going to be an interesting story. You know, the Chevy Volt and other companies that were trying to do this. And Ford also had that. By the way, speaking of ads, here's an example of something that people, you could read this ad for an hour and not understand what it is they're selling. So there is a Walt Whitman poem here. This looks like something from travel. And it says, an invocation to the world. Create an array of any size at vistaboard.com. And just like those fancy ads for fashion things that you're not going to get unless you're in the know, this is something like that. And again, you can imagine what this ad costs. If a single page in the New York Times is 75K, this must be what, $500,000, maybe $1 million, and maybe not 1 million, but maybe 500,000. But it just shows you how advertising works. It should be teasing enough to keep you intrigued, but not reveal everything that then you're not crazy about. So what is it? It's the most beautiful messaging display. And look what they used to advertise that. This is the old airline ads. Remember, Neil, the kind that you'd find in airports, the old kind of the things that kind of flap around. Yeah, like that.
Flipping.
That's the
Yeah, it's like
display.
at Penn Station. It used to be the or Grand Central to tell what track your train was coming on.
Yeah. Hey, look who's watching.
Let me get back to the screen. Oh, Mom, Sudha Parekh watching from Hastings on Hudson. Always great to have you watch. And Sree, I want to assure everyone that this is not just the only time I communicate with my mom. I do actually talk to her and talked to her last night. And in fact, we're going to start trying, I'm saying this publicly on air, a Sunday evening phone call, maybe Zoom, with my sister to catch up, even for like 15, 20 minutes, but to make sure I don't miss any important family news.
I love it.
So that's
I love it.
Breaking news.
Yeah, breaking news in the Parekh family. Yeah, and
Mom, just so you know, I'm drinking something. She counts, Sree. You know, she'll say, I only saw you take 3 sips of your drink during the show. You need to drink more.
Auntie, I'm drinking too. Seishu is watching. Hello, Sree and Neil from Connecticut, a wonderful photographer, photojournalist. Babu says, can you talk about the change of the media from print to digital, like TV, and now the social media, which is a big challenge for the traditional digital platform? So, Abu, this is an important topic. We talk a lot about how all of this is transitioning. Even this show, right? We've been doing it for 10 years, and how it's transitioned from me just kind of having fun with Facebook to this whole production. And from this production, you can see we're able to bring these comments in. Almost no show on television does this on a regular basis. And that's why we're so proud of this. And you're able to put in specific comments on the air from Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, as well as digimentors.group. That's all really important to connect with the audience. One of the things that's happened is Facebook, which was all in on video. And we keep hearing about the power of video. The New York Times is managing the top editor, the managing editor, Joe Kahn, just said that they're investing deeply in video once again. It's strange that Facebook will now remove all video all live stream videos after 30 days. I guess, Neil, if we bother to upload it fully, well, look at that. This is another MacBook setting, I guess, that's causing all kinds of havoc around me. But if we uploaded the video, Neil, then it would stay. But if it's live streamed, they delete it, which is so weird because the live stream video are the things that people sometimes take a lot of interest in. So for them to do that is terrible.
Well, but that's a long-term. I mean, if you think about Facebook's commitment or support for live streaming, it started with back in the day when you were doing the show just on Facebook. We would get huge numbers. Facebook really prioritized live streaming and bumped it up in the algorithm. And over time, they've changed the way that you experience it. So, for example, instead of creating a placeholder post and then the video plays right there, now it sets up an event, and the video plays in the event, and people have to click on the event and click on like once or twice to actually get to the video. Now that they delete the videos, it really, they've deprioritized it so much. It's a great reminder, Sree, as you've said many times, if you don't own the platform, right, if it's free, then they own you. They're the ones that are benefiting, not you. You don't own that platform, and you're left to their whims. So today, like at one point, they were prioritizing live video. Now they're not. At one point, they were letting you keep your live videos on, just in your archives. And then one day, with some warning, they said, we're going to stop. We're going to delete everything that's old and delete everything after 30 days. And there's nothing you can do about it, really.
Yeah, and it's so frustrating to
You're the product. That's what the quote is. If it's free, you're the product.
Yeah, that's right. If you're not paying, you're the product. It's not my quote. It's kind of in the air. I think a lot of people have the observation. Same thing about building your own platform, and that's why we believe in the email relationship, WhatsApp relationships, and making those connections. And that's why we tell everybody, sign up to get Neil's once a week alert about what we're doing, which is separate from our entire process that we have around our newsletter. And so before we get to the paper, we're very quickly going to just tell you about my newsletter. I'm in the middle of writing it for today, and the newsletter is a way for you to see my observations about all things digital, political, cultural, all in one place. And I've been doing this now for 8 years. And so Sunday mornings are very busy around here, even on vacation. And it's called Sree Sunday Note. You can get it at sreenet.substack.com, sreenet.substack.com. And last week we talked to Bobby Ghosh, who, as you can see, interviewed Pele, Neymar, and Messi. He put Messi and Neymar on the cover of Time. And it's part of a series that we run called X teaches Sree about why. And that's someone teaching me about something that I don't know enough about. So we did Bobby teaching me about the World Cup along with my son Krishna, who joined us, and then a guy named Andy Rich, who's a master seller, taught me how to sell, because you need to learn how to sell products, ideas, and services in the 21st century. We have one coming up about the book, The Odyssey, or Homer's The Odyssey, Emily Wilson's translation, as well as the movie with Christopher Nolan. Neil hasn't seen the movie yet, as he was saying, but I can't wait to watch it. But to prepare, we've done this segment, and we're going to put that in the newsletter. So please sign up, sreenet.substack.com, and please share it with your friends if you can. We try to make sure the main content is always free, but to our paid subscribers, we are able to do special things like these virtual salons where you can ask questions in a smaller Zoom setting of some of my more interesting friends. And we also now have a Patreon, Neil. So let's talk about that very quickly. The Patreon is a system that some of you know. It's a way to support a creator whose work you like. So if you like the work we're doing on the read along, on the newsletter, in my WhatsApp communities, another day we'll tell you about, with more than 30 WhatsApp communities, you can go in and chip in $1 a month, $2 a month. For $5 a month, we offer you special things like invitations to those salons, as well as LinkedIn review. If you'd like me to review your LinkedIn profile, I'd be happy to do it for my Patreon members. So how you get this is go to patreon.com/SreeNet, put in $1, $2, $5, whatever you think this is worth. And you should do this for other creators as well, Neil. You've seen a lot of this out there, but this is the first time we're doing it properly and announcing it here. It's all to thank our supporters and viewers.
Absolutely. And Sree, it is something that we've talked about over the years in terms of producing the show, putting it on. People have come to the show. They come back because of the community that we've established. And, it's something, it's kind of like Cheers, where you go and everybody knows your name, and you develop relationships with people online that you've never met. And, people have talked about the idea that, is it worth a cup of coffee a week, for example? If you can do that, great. If not, we'll still produce the show. We'll still put this content out, but it'll allow us to do more if you're interested.
And coffee a month, maybe. It doesn't even have to be a coffee a week.
Month,
Whatever
yeah.
you think is worth. Paula is watching. Good morning from Tallahassee. Paula, dear friend, as well as a longtime producer of the show, and she was a co-host on our 400th episode, which was so much fun, and we had a great time with that. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Here's that 400th show, and there's Paula. We got to interview Tom Jolly, the print editor of the New York Times, Wayne Camadoy, art director, and Mike Connors, who runs the printing plant. Neil, one thing we could do for our viewers is our Patreon members and supporters, we could do a Zoom call, not just this kind of call, but a Zoom event on another day of the week so that they can chat with some of our friends, including people from the New York Times. I'm sure people would be happy to see that. Here's Doug Levy's comment. So sad about the U.S. turn against EVs. I'm very happy to have mine. I've ridden in your EV in California and so grateful that you have it. I'm not sure the story says that the U.S. has turned against EVs. It might be that the U.S. has turned against American EVs, meaning consumers still want them, but that's what I'm hoping. Neil, I've not read this yet. And Doug, I'm just saying that I think it's that the American-made ones are having trouble. Just wait till I don't know if Neil, if you've heard of this thing called BYD, Build Your Dreams, which is available all over the world. It's an incredible car at not a quarter, but much less than the high-end Teslas and things like that.
So I think there are a couple of things that are going on. First, the subhead on the article is the largest U.S. automakers have backed away from electric vehicles, even as global sales are booming. But I think the bigger issue is more, and this is just from my understanding without reading the article, it's the current administration has pulled back support for EVs. Right. And so, if you think about the policies that promote innovation and development of these kinds of technologies, if you have an administration like the current one led by Donald Trump, the EV kind of industry within the auto industry doesn't stand a chance. They're not going to get the support that they may have gotten under President Biden or if Kamala Harris had won.
Sure, absolutely. Elections have consequences, as we keep saying. Deborah's watching, former guest on the show. She talked to us about her trip through Antarctica. Here she's traveling through slightly different terrain in West Virginia. We had people all over the world rehearing the song Country Roads because the U.S. team was singing that after every game, after every match. Turns out, Neil, that song wasn't written in or about West Virginia. The songwriter was in either Maryland or some other part and then decided to throw in West Virginia. So he didn't really mean that to be the case.
It was Maryland.
It was Maryland.
Maryland just didn't work.
Didn't work as well as
West Virginia. In the song.
Yeah, you get many more syllables if you say West Virginia than Maryland. Deborah also says absolutely correct, Neil, about your assessment. And then Miriam says as we suffer increasingly from global warming for pushes of oil and fossil fuels. Miriam, you are absolutely right. All right, let's take a look at the paper. Neil's going to put my camera up so that I can show you some of the headlines. Yep. That's what we do here. And you'll see the lead story is inside Trump's push to get new Air Force One aloft. A Times investigation finds trade-offs in plane security and ballooning costs. There's that plane, and some of this is so obvious that this was going to be a problem, and some of it not. And as with a lot of things, Neil, we knew this was going to be bad. It's terrible, and it's even worse than we thought. Like, that sequence of things happens all the time now, and I'm laughing because otherwise, as we say on the show, we'll be crying all the time. So that's the lead. Let's see, what is the off lead here is the woman who became Epstein's heir. Dentist may receive as much as $100 million. And this, I presume, is the same Columbia dental student who a professor there I know she was his student, and she wouldn't come to class, but there was pressure from the top to have her pass and graduate because she was a friend of Epstein's. This guy really got around all over the place, and this woman is now in the news.
All right, Sree, one thing I would say before commenting on that is I think it's interesting just in terms of the layout and the graphic design. Usually you'll see a lead article on the right-hand side as you're looking at the paper, just one, maybe two columns, like one column story or maybe two one-column stories, and then a big display photo on the left, which is a different story. They'll use that space to highlight something else. In this case, they use that display photo to focus on the Air Force One Trump story and gave it two columns as the lead. They didn't find a second story, which I thought is interesting.
And you're absolutely. I was wondering why this looks different. Normally, you're right. It goes like this, and then there's a big picture here. We're talking about Sunday mornings. They do that, and then they push to a photo inside, a story inside, a feature, international, something like that. Okay, thousands flee as fires sweep Western Europe, and I presume that has something to do with the terrible heat and everything else that's going on there. And then Iran war leaves farmers desperate for diesel, food supply imperiled in Bangladesh. Wow. I thought it was going to say in Iran, but it says food supply imperiled in Bangladesh. So we have one of the top Bangladeshi journalists watching, Abu Tahir. If you have any light to shed on this, Abu, if you're still with us, I would love to hear that. Even Salad Queen says nope to greens as outbreak grows. So the Salad Queen is saying don't eat as much salad. There's a big problem in America. And Sarah Tercero, she is known as a salad queen, and that's the title of her book. And she's saying, with the number of infections tied to lettuce, let's cut back on all leafy greens. Neil, are you doing that already?
I'm definitely cutting back on my leafy greens. I definitely am being a little bit more cautious. I figured instead of trying to figure out which lettuce is safe and which isn't, I'm just cutting it all out, Sree. No leafy greens at all in my diet.
But Neil, you're not famous for your most vegetarian or most healthy diet. I hate to tell our audience. So you cutting out all those leafy greens may not be that much of something to remark on.
That's why it's easy to do. I think the other interesting thing I saw on Facebook, Rochelle. I'll say it came from Rochelle, our neighbor in New York. She shared this meme. Right now, chocolate is good for you, and lettuce can kill you. I've been training my whole life for this. So anyone who has misgivings about their chocolate intake, I think this is your moment.
This is your moment. That's right. That's right. I'm unfortunately pre-diabetic, so I can't do chocolate instead of lettuce. But folks, on my newsletter, because of the support of all of you, we're able to do a whole new vertical called My Pre-Diabetic Life. Sreenet.substack.com. Do check it out. Taiwan tests how it would resist a Chinese maritime blockade. That's the lead international story. And inside we have Pompeii ceiling with a love story is restored. That should be a fascinating thing to have an archaeologist or someone describe this, because that would be really cool. And in Venezuela, searches for loved ones in rubble, including four-legged kind, that's still going on. And we know the trouble that America has already caused in Venezuela. And we know it's caused the trouble in Iran And look at these fires in Eastern Europe. Very powerful photographs here and images here. And another Bangladesh story, president of Bangladesh under fire, quits position. I missed this completely. Has resigned as Bangladesh anticipate the return and surrender of the ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, his one-time ally who fled to India before being convicted of crimes against humanity. We know that it was a student uprising that ended the tenure of the Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, and so there's some new twist in the story. But that brings us to the big story out of India, the one that Neil promoted early in the show. Beleaguered education chief resigns in India, and you see the jubilation of student protesters who've been fighting nonstop against and expressing their anger about what has happened in India. Quick background on this, and you may have heard the word the Cockroach Janta Party, basically the Cockroach People's Party. That was a satirical response to a top judge in India. India's top judge called student complainers and protesters cockroaches. So a student made up a party called the Cockroach People's Party, and eventually there were these protests in Delhi and the spread around the country, and they were complaining about the problems with the education system generally, opportunities for students, but specifically, Neil, there was a leak of an examination paper, or the exam questions were leaked, and that's what they were complaining about. And Neil, even though you live in America, you've heard enough stories about how India's upwardly mobile opportunities often come from exams that students take at a very young age, getting into the right school, getting into the right college, getting into the right civil service or medical opportunity. All of that comes from exams. So if the exams are not honest, are not trusted, then everything falls apart.
So specifically in this case, Sree, it was the medical school exams, which is certainly a huge thing in India. If you score high enough, you're allowed to even go to medical school. And it was what I remember reading: 2 million students who had studied for this exam had their results thrown out because there was this breach of security, this leak. And that was, I think, one of the initial, triggers for this. It led to protests. It led to several suicides. I mean, if you just think about
21,
that,
21 suicides.
21 suicides. People who have studied and put all of their hopes and dreams and years of effort into getting a high enough score on this exam, and then boom, for whatever reason, it gets thrown out. And your options are what? To do it again, to wait a year. I don't know how that would all work. That really threw people.
Couple of observations. Part of, you said wait a year. In America, where we have gap years as routine, where people understand that you want to do things at the time that makes sense for you, it's not the case in India. There's this immense pressure, this term called settling down. When are you settling down? Meaning, when are you finished studying? When do you have a good job? And when are you getting married? That's settling down. And so even a year's delay in any of that is considered a crisis. One of the things I surprise when I tell Indian folks and a lot of South Asians that in places like Canada and even in parts of America, they hold their children back so they can be older in school, so they can play sports at a different level, is shocking to most Indians who want to give their kids something called double promotion, where you try to sneak your kid into opportunities to go, to finish faster. And here they slow things down. Some of it for very good reasons, some of it for the sports stuff and other things, but just the idea that you have a clock on you all the time is part of the problem in India. And another thought I have that I will share, the reason I'm sitting here with all of you and able to talk to you today, and the career I've had, the life I've had, is because of one of these Indian exams. Not me, but my father took an exam in India. You had to be between the ages of 21 and 23. And if you took that, it's the Indian Civil Service exam, and you scored in the top 10 people who in that from hundreds of thousands of people, you could become a diplomat. And so a man who was born in a house with mud walls, no electricity, no indoor plumbing, became an ambassador. And that was because of the single exam that you take. You had 2 shots from 21 to 23, and that determined all your promotions and everything for the rest of your career, all from a single exam. That's why I'm here, is because he took that exam and did well in it. So I understand the pressure that people can be on in India with these exams. I myself got my undergrad degree in India. I did terribly as a student. That was not my focus. I'm sorry to say I did not get the high grades I should have, but I was able to leapfrog. Our family was able to leapfrog in a single generation, that upward mobileness from the single exam. So you can understand, Neil, why this becomes such a big deal in India. And that's what you're seeing. And you saw the way it spun out of control in Bangladesh and in Nepal, where the entire government was replaced. Here, a single minister has been replaced.
Sree, can you talk a little bit about the social media angle on this? A lot has been written and said about in terms of Gen Z in India using their phones, Instagram, etc., to drive these protests. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, sure. But in India is a country that we talked about leapfrogging and doing things like that. India is a country where it leapfrogged entire generation of electronic platforms by going. Lots of people in India never got a landline in their lives, never were able to get one because it could take years to get a landline, and they leapfrogged and went right to cell phones and smartphones, dumb phones, but what they call feature phones in India. And they became much more savvy than people in America and elsewhere who are used to using phones and relied on landlines for so long. And so what you're seeing here is the ability to cut through control of not just Modi's party, but anybody who wants to control the message. They're able to do that in a very quick and very powerful way. And you're seeing that right now in what's happened in India and what's happened with this particular protest. And I think this means you're going to see people asking for more opportunities for things that they want to fight for. And protesting is something that we have a rich tradition in America, we have a rich tradition in India, and a rich tradition in young people protesting. We saw the power of the protests in the Arab Spring, and you're seeing here a story from the New York Times about that. So this is something we could do a whole episode on, but I'd love to hear people's thoughts. Please post in the comments. We have lots of people coming through. But Neil, here's a juxtaposition, if we can, to the front of the opinion section. This is not just a problem in India. This is a problem in America as well. Look at this stunning headline, which says, "Oops, Gen Zers don't see the point of ambition. I don't blame them." People who are disillusioned by what is on offer in America. It says, Gen Z fell out of love with work. It's easy to see why. Neil, can't hear you.
I had muted myself to make sure the video didn't play the audio. I'll go back and take a look at that story, because this actually is something that I talked about with my relatives last week, with this whole situation, the whole discussion of going back to work, of back to offices rather, and people not wanting to prioritize that. And really that question, well, if you don't do that, then you're not going to be able to get ahead. You're not going to be able to do the networking and get the FaceTime with your boss. And I think that the idea that some people, that's not their priority. Over the last few years with working from home, it really does change the calculus. The benefit of working from home, of spending time with family, of not being in a commute. Okay, does that mean that I may not advance as far as quickly? Okay. Does that mean I may not get as high a salary? Okay. I mean, these are trade-offs that I think people are actually consciously taking, not just frivolously. I don't want to be in the office. I don't want to have to. I want to be able to wear my pajamas. I think it's actually an intentional. Let's prioritize family and home and work-life balance, and not be. I mean, you can also have work-life, but not have work-life balance working from home. Trust me, I struggle with that. But if you want to prioritize family and kind of other things in life, maybe that's a trade-off. People are it's different than the last kind of few generations and their approach to work.
You're right. I have a friend who negotiated with a nonprofit to say, I will take less of a salary if you will let me work from home an extra day a week, because that's less time I have to be on the road, more time with my family, all the things you just talked about. Let's quickly get some comments in here. Mary C. Curtis, eviscerating the CDC infrastructure and food safety federal department's not a great idea, it turns out. I saute my lettuce and build Asian bowls. Pradnya says, I miss my spinach salads. Deb says, last night at a restaurant in Buckley, West Virginia, a waitress laboriously gave a lesson on how and what they used to clean the lettuce. We passed anyway. Scary. I've been eating lettuce and things the last 2 days because on Long Island it's so fresh and so many options. But I'm good now. You're all scaring me, folks. So I'm a little worried about that. But we're going to transition.
I was joking earlier that I've cut out lettuce, but in a serious way, like Pam and I have been traveling a bit lately and eating out, and we actually have been careful about eating lettuce in restaurants, etc. At the diner we were at yesterday, we heard the waitress describe to the table behind us that they use romaine lettuce, and that's not part of what Taylor Farms is using. That they get their lettuce sourced from somewhere else. That it's perfectly safe. Similar to Deborah, we passed anyway. But it's interesting. It's changing the conversation for sure.
Sure. Somebody who knows and has done some research, is washing enough to do this? Mary is sauteing it. Does the heat kill it? Does washing kill it? That'd be good to know. Here, a couple of quick things here. Pramod says, good morning to all your viewers from the PK Sharma family in Riverdale. Great to have you back. We had a guest from the PK Sharma family, a doctor who was so kind to be with us, talking about the importance of being aware of colorectal cancer. And that was just around the time of the early part of the pandemic. Very grateful to the family. And thank you for sharing your story. I never knew 21 to 23 year age was also a condition for the IAS, the IFS, and the top 10 candidates. It's crazy to think that that determines your entire life. You, Neil, we've heard stories about China, Japan, where these exams are such a big part of everybody's lives. Naomi says, the White House Correspondents' Dinner, where investigative journalists who exposed widespread corruption shook hands and schmoozed with the smirking felon-in-chief, was disturbing and inappropriate. Well said. I do want to connect all of this to a story in the paper, and Pradnya had posted earlier that this is something unusual is happening this weekend. It is Boy Scout Jamboree is happening this weekend. And so here is an interesting story. Neil has a Girl Scout daughter, and what happens when Girl Scouts get to be Boy Scouts? A Den mother has written this. Text by Erica, song and photographs by one of the Times photographers. Outside, wet or cold or exhausted, students learn they can survive discomfort. Where do you stand on this? And some people may be hearing this for the first time, that Boy Scouts, desperate to get members, added girls could join the Boy Scouts. To me, as complete outsiders, my first question was, will we still get Girl Scout cookies? More importantly, I have worked with the Girl Scouts, and I've had the honor of doing some training out in Savannah, the headquarters of the Girl Scout organization. And so that means a lot to me that the Girl Scouts do well, survive, etc. So Neil, give us a quick briefing on that. This, I presume, is positive, the way it's framed without reading it. But tell me about the tension within Boy Scouts and our parents of girls thinking, hey, let me put them in this other thing.
Well, I'll say that if we go back, it's been 10 years since the Boy Scouts changed their policy. That's why I think that's the anniversary. And at the time, the Boy Scouts were rocked by several lawsuits and scandals around sexual abuse and behavior from the connections with the local churches, the Catholic Church. The military was rethinking their relationship with the Boy Scouts. I'll say that so Emily was a Girl Scout, has been a Girl Scout for the last few years, and at the time I was very skeptical of the idea of having Girl Scouts join Boy Scouts. I think that this is a really an age-old question, Sree, in terms of whether it's in education or scouting or sports. Without even, I don't even want to open up the whole question of kids who identify as non-binary or transgender. That really puts a very different frame on this. But even if in I hesitate to even say this, Sree, but even in a binary world, if you're only thinking about boys and girls, and that's not how how people are, frankly, I think that there's historically been this question: can girls get a better education in a single sex environment? Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, will Girl Scouts get a better experience in a Girl Scout environment versus being mixed with boys? I certainly was skeptical of that idea. I thought there was a lot of value in, especially at younger ages, having that focused attention and focused experience. I think a lot of it at the time was a play. It was seen as a play for the Boy Scouts for relevance and long-term viability. Think about it. 50% of the population was left out, and they certainly had the bigger name and the bigger history that they could draw on. What I'll say is, without having read the article, the Girl Scouts have not folded in 10 years. It's not that the Boy Scouts let girls in and then the Girl Scout scouting movement has crumbled. I think that's saying something.
I bet it's the opposite. I bet parents and the organization have doubled down and trying to do more and be more innovative and try to do things. And Pradnya says that she was at the Girl Scouts Unite, which is in DC, from all over the world. They come together every 3 years, which sounds fantastic. Convention. And it's no longer called Boy Scouts, it's just called Scouting America. That's the new name. Girl Scouts are completely open to transgender girls, not so the Scouts. And Naomi says, tread carefully. The historical institutional misconduct involving the Boy Scouts of America primarily centers on a decades-long cover-up. Over 8,200 claimants came forward, leading to a historic $2.4 billion bankruptcy settlement to compensate survivors of structural and systemic failures. So big organizations can cause big problems. We only have a few minutes left. Want to go through a couple of headlines here for everybody. We do this partly, Neil, so that people can go back and read their own local paper. They don't have to read the Times. It's not just about the Times. It's about celebrating journalism. So you can search these, find these stories in other places. The powerful op-ed here called "Please Don't Thank Us for the Land." A native leader saying, don't do the acknowledgements. He says those acknowledging the native people who once lived here costs and is worth nothing. Wow. The real estate cover is real. Let's go in here. It's a living where her books are set. This is an author who's written 27 novels on Nantucket, about Nantucket, and she reveals why she loves the area so much. The Metropolitan cover is leaving his mark on Brooklyn. Michael McLear wanted to be John Travolta. Instead, he became Caves. I presume that's a character in Saturday Night Fever. I have not. I don't remember that title. I've seen the movie a long time ago. But who was that character, Caves, who was, instead of becoming John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever? Expectations were high for a World Cup effect. Did the throngs of visiting soccer fans deliver a hoped-for boon to the local economy? They certainly couldn't have hurt. because they made a lot of noise and were out there. So Neil, I don't know if people know. All right, this was an interesting cover. This is the biography of Kashmir Hill. She's a journalist. I got slopped. Somebody put up a single author has launched 10 different biographies in a single week, just made up unauthorized AI biographies, and she called it I Got Flopped. Sunday Styles cover is a market beyond provides a purpose beyond profit. That's unusual. And this is Sammy Newsdorf, who has started a high-end grocery store in an eclectic high. Oh, I think this is a typo, Neil. I hate it when I spot typos, but unless this is not meant to be, owner of an eclectic high-end grocery story in Lower Manhattan. Maybe it is a grocery story, but I think it was a typo. Let's keep going.
Sorry,
go ahead.
I was going to say, to go back, you were talking about the World Cup, and I'll share two articles, but they're in New York, New Jersey, at least. They say that the prediction was for 1.2 million visitors and 3.3 billion in economic activity. The first 5 games alone apparently had 1.2 billion in direct spending and 2.1 billion in activity. But there's some skepticism about those numbers.
Oh, they're always overpromise,
right?
Underdeliver. But you saw the impact. You saw people around. Neil, you might remember when I took my dad to see the U.S. Open golf tournament, I ran into the Tartan Army, these Scottish fans in kilts. I mean, certainly they wouldn't have been there without the World Cup, and they were spending money, on $10, $20 beers, whatever. So that was happening. The book review cover is, you said you have 2 stories. What was the second one?
Yeah. So the other one I think is actually in more detail, and we won't go through all of it, but I will share again the link. And that's why one of the things, Sree, you talked about putting comments on the screen sets this show apart, sharing links to stories and giving people the ability to go back and follow along. This article, did the World Cup live up to the 104 Super Bowls concept? It really quickly, Spain and FIFA were the 2 winners, they said, but luxury travel companies, Norway and Cape Verde, Kansas City,
Norway, great.
The beer industry came out as winners, but hotels, how hotels performed, it's a draw, and who lost? Ordinary fans who couldn't afford to get tickets.
Very sad.
And visitors from World Cup nations. We talked about this on the show in terms of the immigration policies that were being put in place. So that's something to think about. The other thing with the World Cup story that I particularly wanted to touch on was Argentina, because first of all, with the World Cup, Argentina was just overwhelmed by Spain, and 0 shots on goal. Even though it was a close, 1-0 game, the goalie was incredible, as a former goalie myself for Argentina. But they were the villains of this year's World Cup. They came under a lot of criticism. What is your, you talked to Bobby Ghosh. Did that come up in your conversation? And what was your take on Argentina this year?
Yeah, if you go to my YouTube channel, we have an excerpt from that interview with Bobby Ghosh where we talk specifically about the flopping, the intimidation of referees. All of this is bad for the game and just bad for the sport and for community and society in general. So we talked about that. Argentina, for sure, became the bad guys in the way they acted, the way they responded, and they had a chance to make Messi, who's already immortaler, and they failed because they didn't take the game seriously, and it was a dull game in that sense. And the loser was Argentina in so many ways, and Spain, I think, is going to have a great run going forward. It had already won the European contest, the big European tournament. All right, let's keep going. We have just a couple of minutes left. The book review cover is Bar Chords. The Midnight Special by Colin Asher offers an unconventional music history with profiles of 5 artists influenced by the prison system. And we have our friend Shaheen Pasha, who runs the Prison Journalism Project, and I want to tell her about that. And Arts and Leisure cover is Monumental Masterwork Rises in the Desert. What is this? The land artist Chris Ross has been building Star Axis, a naked eye observatory in New Mexico since the 1970s. He's almost done. How old is this guy? And the last thing I want to just go back here is to the New York Times Magazine, which has that EV cover. But they also have this interview with Zoran Mamdani that got a lot of attention. Zoran Mamdani, look at this picture, great photograph. It says, knows he has political capital and he intends to spend it. So this is something you can find online, I'm sure. Folks, we are so grateful. Every Sunday we do this on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Instagram, and the Digimentors website. Neil does an amazing job producing this and putting this all together. We're now on Spotify. We're now on Apple Podcasts. 10 years, 275 guests, and 403 episodes. That is amazing, and so grateful to everybody who watches. Please forward this to a friend. You can watch these all on our channels right after we're done. And you want to find our archive, you go to digimentors.group and look for the New York Times archive button.
I want to give a quick shout out, Sree, on Instagram. It's harder to show the actual comment on screen, but Sunita Sarabji on Instagram said that she was a Girl Scout for 15 years and was also in the 4-H Club and Explorers, both of which were co-ed and seemed much more inclusive. So I want to thank Sunita for that comment and for watching on Instagram. The other thing, just so you know, as we finish up the show, if you joined us late, you'll be able to watch the show in its entirety on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and our Digimentors website from the very beginning, just a few minutes after we end the show, and certainly encourage folks to do that. Again, just as a reminder, we want to make sure people know about the Jaipur Literature Festival, Sree,
yes.
Coming to North America. North Carolina, Los Angeles, Seattle, Colorado, Toronto, New York, and Houston, September and 1 week into October as well. Talk a little bit about the Jaipur Literature Festival.
Sure. The Mother Festival is in Jaipur, January 14th to 18th, 2027. I tell everyone it's got to be on your bucket list. You have to go once in your life. If you can make it there, you must go. Tina Brown went, called it the greatest literary show on earth. Oprah went and loved it. And now it comes to America. It's been here for more than 10 years. North Carolina, you saw all the cities there. It's called JLF USA, some of the most famous authors in the world and newcomers, and not just books. It's movies. It's talking about movies. It's talking about music and so much more, and lots of political conversations. And they don't shy away from anything. So please check out jlflitfest.org and you can find all the details. JLF USA. We'd love to have you join us. I'll be at all 7 of these cities this fall, so I'm going to be traveling a lot. And Neil and I have to adjust our planning for the read-along. And I hope I'll get to do some of these in a couple of other cities, maybe with some other authors and others as well. So thank you very much, everybody, for being part of the show, being part of this community, these amazing folks that we've gotten to meet, Neil, and get to talk to every Sunday. It's been very, very special. Here's the Sunday note and the soft power of the beautiful game, what I learned about the World Cup from Bobby Ghosh, as well as from my son, Krishna, who joined us for the show. There's the Patreon. Please support us on the Patreon. This is something new we're trying. And you can chip in $2 a month, $5 a month if you like what we do on this show, the newsletter, all of the stuff we do. We'd love your support. And Deb says, thanks for the listen, Sree and Neil. We are very grateful to everybody. I'm going to show you a little bit of the sky as Neil says goodbye.
Absolutely. Thank you again, everyone, for watching. We really appreciate the community that has built up and the consistent viewers and new viewers as well. As a reminder, you can find the show on Spotify shortly after we finish. I need a little time to upload the episode. What's great about Spotify is you can listen or you can watch the video right there as well. We're also on Apple Podcasts. so you can take us with you. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great time. Bye-bye.